welcome along. Okay, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. It's Kathy here, Kathy Frey from IMCO, from the International Integrated Maternity Healthcare Organisation, and welcome along to this week's webinar, our Maternity Natural Health webinar. And we are very pleased to have a favourite back, which is Jutta. Hey, say hello.
I say hello, everyone. I say again, konnichiwa, hello, bonjour, comment ça va, kia ora, howdy, guten Abend, how is everyone? And I'm delighted to be back as a guest. Because you know we had such a great time last time and it was wonderful. Yeah,
we did, and it's so neat to have you back again. I know you're such a friend and supporter of IMCO and what we're doing here. And for those of you who don't know, Jutta, she's a world-renowned midwife. Well, she's been a midwife for nearly 40 years, and founder of the Elements of Birth, and also a best-selling author of Happy Birthing Days. And she's an international speaker on topics of positive birth psychology and out of trauma and into happiness. And that's going to be very much our focus today, is discussing the practicalities of helping our clients when they've experienced happiness, joy, and confidence with what they're doing after maternity trauma. So that could be trauma from a pregnancy or trauma from a birth. It is a subject that is, thank goodness, is actually on the table these days, because it's not that long ago. We're only talking of one generation ago where trauma was very much just pushed underneath the rug, so to speak. And so it's wonderful to have you here. And why don't you start with explaining your background and how you came to end up focusing on that trauma part of the maternity journey.
That's great, thank you. So first of all, really, how can I say, in Germany it's very hot. A really warm welcome to everyone, and thanks for joining, because I know it's a little bit a harsh topic, not usually a favorite, I've learned. But let me say something. Last year I spoke on a conference in Germany with this topic, out of trauma back into happiness. 10 days after the title was announced, this workshop was fully booked. And so I ended up giving this workshop for 150 midwives. Yeah, and it showed me very clearly, wow, this topic is a topic that has great importance to all of us, no matter whether we are midwives, doulas, whether we are doctors, whether we are pregnant moms. It's a topic that has great impact and great importance. And that's why I love speaking about it, even that it's a bit a hard topic. So how did I get into it? As Kathy said already, I've been a midwife already for, 38 years this year. And you can imagine, I started at a young age of 20 years, being really innocent, all hunky-dory, fully up for, natural birthing in a hospital. I trained in Stuttgart according to Mr. Le Boyer, Frédéric Le Boyer, and I loved it. But already as a young midwifery student, I could tell there was things going on that kind of touched me very much. For instance, whenever a woman would lose a pregnancy, or, in the 80s, you still had some events happening. Ultrasound wasn't quite as advanced as it is nowadays. So, you had some things happening that had, a big impact on people's life. And so I was always wondering, and I was wanting to help those women and their partners and those families to feel better. Now, when I was young, sure, I was very emotional. I would often hold hands and give hugs and say, it's going to be all right, and there will be something. But through the years, when you are practicing in all areas of midwifery, you really start to have a deeper understanding what trauma is. So let me get a little bit first into what I would talk about when I talk about trauma, and then I will tell you through my own story how I really got into it. So, when we talk about trauma, trauma is a word that comes from Greek, and it means hurt, wound. And we know trauma can have different aspects. When we look at birthing, and we're all birth professionals, of course, it can be a physical trauma. Sometimes we have births that are very violent, and we know that. And so for this reason can be a physical trauma, but can be also when you lose a pregnancy, when you have lost many babies, when something happened in your past, or when you have a violent birth, or like some of my clients, the ones that I mainly work with, are the ones that had a stillbirth. And I will give you some stories of my clients as well. So, you know, when you work with those women, when you are in this profession, you have to divide it into two things. One is you as you, and one is the people that you work with. Now, when you are a young midwife, of course, when you are present the first time at a stillbirth, you are emotionally, how can I say, on a roller coaster. And you often don't really know how to act, how to do it the best. You want to give your best because you feel for those people, but you also want to cry and so on. And that is all fine, because I believe it's good to have an emotional connection to the people you work with. But often it almost looks as if women that have experienced something like this have a stigma. This is what they will tell you, because once the story has happened, say they lose a baby at 36 weeks, 27 weeks, 17 weeks, or even in the early weeks of the pregnancy, often people around them have no idea how to deal with it. And most of the time, it will lead to either, oh, it's going to be all right, you're going to have another baby, something like this, almost ignorance, or that people even won't speak to them anymore. And we'll dig a little bit deeper into that. So through the years, as you can tell, I'm quite emotional and I really love what I do. And I'm very passionate about our profession, our work, because I believe everyone deserves the best start in life. And that includes everyone, the baby, the mom, the dad to be, the partner, you know, could be as a woman, but also us as birth professionals, because birth itself should be something to be celebrated. But when things don't go well or don't turn out as we want, also it leaves often a feeling of hopelessness, emptiness. And for me, I just really started feeling for those women, and I could see the system itself did not provide much to them besides just holding your hand and saying, we're very sorry. And that's it. You know, in the 80s, there wasn't much about that. Now, through the years of being a midwife, I was always curious about how can we improve birthing, how can I improve things. And you know, this journey took me into many trainings. Amongst them, I became an NLP trainer and a hypnotherapist many years back already. NLP, for the ones that don't know, is called Neuro-Linguistic Programming and was developed in the 60s. And you could say it's a user's manual to your own brain. And it's a manual also how you can change emotions, how you can change pictures, memories, not in the sense that you dilute them or you make them go away, but you change them, you put them away in the far distance. That, for instance, when you have a bad memory, it's not popping up right in front of your eyes all the time. But I will speak again about this in a moment. So through the years, I wanted to help better. That's why I made my journey to many places, to the UK. I'm German based, but you know, I've lived also in New Zealand and Australia. So I've gone to all kinds of people to learn something, study something, to understand how can I help those women? Because there's in fact not that many practitioners that really want to work with that women. Of course, because it's a heavy load. It's not a joyful work. It's many tears that will be cried and you could fill buckets with it. And to be honest, you have to have, how can I say, a certain personality, I think, to keep on working with trauma for a long time. Because I'm honest, it sucks. And it sucks your energy as well. You go home and you often feel like, wow, what a heavy story. Anyway, so in 2015, I'm a big time traveler. I love my work, but I also love going around the world. And I have traveled much to many, many different places. I went to Nepal and I love Nepal. It was my third trip to Nepal. But when I was in Nepal, I wanted to go on a motorbike ride with my French boyfriend at the time. We were actually in this really big earthquake that happened in 2015, an earthquake that went through, you know, all newspapers, an earthquake that left Nepal in bits and pieces. And in 90 seconds, this is all it took. My whole world was upside down and everything around me was destroyed. And so for 2 weeks, the 2 weeks that I stayed in Nepal, I was helping people, I was doing things. And after 2 weeks, I went back to Germany. Now, while I was in Nepal, I felt actually really good. But when I came back to Berlin, the next day, I had a total meltdown. I was crying for a whole day. And I thought, wow, I think that is trauma, sort of, yeah, observing myself. Luckily, I was doing my NLP training, and the topic was, I had booked it a year before, trauma. And so I took a flight to Spain a week later, and I also discovered very quickly that in just 2-3 days, I could completely get out of this zone of that. Every time when I would think about Nepal, I would have to cry feeling guilty. Now you could say, hey, what has Nepal to do with the trauma that people experience? Well, it's exactly the same thing, because trauma has a certain mechanism, how it works. And it doesn't matter what it's a trauma, because you've been in an earthquake or whether you have lost a baby. Of course, I would personally think losing a baby is more heavy, but still the feeling and the experience you have, the physical, the emotional experience will come in different levels, but is in a way the same. Anyway, I learned very quickly there is ways how you can get out of trauma. Now, I don't know if any of you works with trauma. I don't know, but I'm sure, because I can see, I have to put my glasses on. Someone said, I'm from New York. Hey, this is good. Oh, hey, yeah, fantastic. Thanks for seeing me, because I would be later on curious to ask you if you have ever had a trauma yourself and if you have found a way to get out of it. Now, the problem with trauma is a couple of things. One thing is the hurt that you have yourself. Yeah, the hurt that you feel like when you lose a baby or you lose many pregnancies, you feel like you can't do it. You wake up in the morning, you feel sad, you feel heavy, and you feel like you can't breathe. Every trauma usually goes along with a somatic experience, right? Everything you experience, like, okay, you wake up with this kind of feeling in the morning. You feel like you have a whole mountain of rock on your chest. You feel you can't breathe. You feel you have a heavy load on your shoulders. And often you also feel empty and hollow, and you have the feeling it makes no sense for you to live. Why would you get up? What's the point of it? I'll give you a story. A couple of years back, through a Facebook group, a woman found me. This lady is from Jordan, and she had just moved to Berlin. She doesn't speak German. She only speaks English, okay, English. And she sent me a note saying, hello, Jutta, I wanted to attend your birthing class, but then I lost my baby at 36 weeks. I said to her, please contact me. When she came to see me, because I think a story is good, when she came to see me, she had lost her baby already 6 or 7 months ago. So now most people around you would say 6 or 7 months, get over it, get on with your life. But of course, you cannot get on with your life when you have lost a baby. Because when you're pregnant, we all know that. The moment you're pregnant, you feel like, oh, I can see this little baby. I can imagine, is it a little boy, a little girl? It's going to be in our family. You see yourself holding your baby. Already you make so many plans inside. Now picture at 36 weeks, all you usually think is, right, I'm just getting ready. I will give birth. And then I come home and I have this beautiful little baby in my arms. Now, you know, in her case, she had gone to the doctor and she had said to the doctor, I don't feel so good. The doctor had checked out everything and said, no, everything is fine. And she said, but I felt like I don't feel so good. But the doctor had said, no, you're fine. The next time when she went to the doctor, her baby was gone. So, you know, when she was sitting in the chair, yeah, I thought the same. But, you know, when you don't speak the language and you're so new to a country, you don't have the gut to get up and just say, you know, I'm just going to the hospital and get it checked out. That was her feeling. It was her second baby. Anyway, so what happened next is when she was sitting on the chair, she just cried. My first sentence, and I really want you to be aware of, my first sentence was that I said to her, no matter what happened, I really want to tell you one thing is you are not guilty of losing your baby. And you haven't done anything wrong, because that's the first thing those moms think. They think it's my fault. I have done something wrong. I must have done something wrong. I'm a bad person, depending on from which culture you come. But the question they always have to themselves is, I shouldn't have eaten that, shouldn't have done that, shouldn't have gone to the pool, shouldn't have. I must have done something wrong. And hardly anyone takes this load off their shoulders. Anyway, so when she was sitting there, we had a chat about everything, and she cried, of course, and I really felt for her, because, you know, how can you not? anyhow, I started working with her, and I will explain to you what I did. But let me just say what the result was. When we finished the first session, she left, and then she sent me a text, and she said to me, you know, Jutta, when I went home, it was the first night in all those long months that I was able to go to bed and sleep. When I woke up in the morning, I felt like I can go out shopping. So she hadn't been going out shopping. Yeah? She was just hiding at home. Her husband said to her, what have you done? Something is different. And she said, nothing. So she kept it to herself. So she came back. We did the next session. And she had told me her little son, when this story happened, when she had lost her baby, her little son, who was 4 years old, started biting other children in the kindergarten. And he was, I think, just trying to work something out, because you understand that we're all a system. Anyway, after the second session, her son stopped biting. And she told me then that now she was thinking about going to Jordan. To keep the story short, I worked with her altogether 5 times. After the third session, she took a flight to Jordan, and her words were always, how can I go back home when my hands are empty? These are the emotions those women have. They feel I'm a loser, I've done something wrong, it's my fault, I'm guilty. I can't do it. I can't hold babies. Something I did killed my baby. She said literally to me, imagine, Jutta, maybe I was laughing, ha ha ha, while my baby was dying. It's all these kind of thoughts that women have. And that is really horrible. Anyway, she went back to Jordan because I said to her, your family, your friends, they will love you with empty hands. They wait for you because they want to fill those empty hands with good feelings, with love, with happiness, yeah, with all the emotion towards you. So she went back to Jordan, and then she saw me again one more time. And she sent me a message later saying, sometimes I still think about this and a little feeling of unhappiness comes up, a sadness. But now I can put it into a good place where it's well kept. I put it into a special box. And she found herself a job, and she just had a baby about 4 months ago, a healthy baby. So why am I telling you this story? I'm sure as professionals, you are aware of how those women feel, but you also are aware that the system, in most countries at least, doesn't offer anything. Okay, if you live in New Zealand, in Australia, and Germany, maybe you can find someone like me or a professional person that will help you. But in other countries, there's nada, nothing, zero, yet. And it's always put back onto the woman. I just recently worked with a woman from Indonesia. Now, you know, Indonesia is a big country. Same thing. She lost a baby at 39 weeks. Same thing. It was a public holiday and she didn't feel good. And she wanted to go to the doctor, but she felt like she can't go to the doctor. And when she went to the doctor the next time, the baby was gone. And so, you know, culturally, religiously, no one really gave her a space to grieve. And when there is no space to grieve, when there is no acknowledgement of the loss, when it's kind of just put away and the woman and the man are left alone with this has a big negative impact on their relationship. Many of those relations will actually break apart because they can't hold that up. And the problem is not solved. And as we know, when those women become pregnant or fall pregnant the next time, they have this big burden in them. And that is going to be a big obstacle to have a good birth the next time, because all they are is fear driven and they can't help it. And clearly we understand why that is, because they feel like, I felt so safe, I felt so secure up until 36 weeks, 39 weeks. And so, you know, it's very interesting when you start working with those women, how you can change the pathways in their brain, because that's in fact what you do, and how you give them a chance. How can I say, imagine your mind is a living room, okay? And someone came in and painted a really ugly painting on the wall. Would you leave that? Of course you wouldn't. You would either get a painter in and say, well, clean up that wall, make it nice and beautiful, or you would go and get a bucket of color and you would do it yourself. And you would do it as long until this ugly painting is gone and you can't see it anymore. You know it's underneath, but you say like, now I can't see it anymore. So, you know, certain mind techniques are important for that. But let's go back to the beginning. So I know Kathy is listening because we have, it's so much. So when I think about this topic, one thing is, first of all, whenever you experience a stillbirth, something like this, one part is that you always have to work with yourself. Because as much as empathy is good, but if you are in shock and if you go home and carry it around, you're going to bring it to the table next time with the woman. And then you have to have a certain setup when you meet those women, because those women want to be seen, they want to be acknowledged, they want someone to listen, but also someone to help them let go and change it. And my saying is always, everyone deserves happiness. And I really mean everyone, because that is the most important thing to say. Just because something like this happened, I always say to them, think, what would your little baby say? Would your little baby say, I want you to cry for the rest of your life? I said, no, your little baby would say to you, Mom, I want you to be happy and I want you to get on with your life. And truly, my belief is everyone deserves happiness. So you have to divide the trauma into different parts. And let me explain a little bit how trauma works in our brain. You know, we have different layers of the brain and different parts. And we have something called the amygdala. And the amygdala is the fire alarm system of our brain. When we experience trauma, most people think the brain is actually overstimulated. But in fact, what happens is the brain almost goes numb and only one part of the brain goes brrr all the time. And so what we have to do is we have to awaken all those other parts. And in our library, we have to shift the picture, the book, the memory, and put it a little bit into the back. So it's not about, how can I say, making it go away. You can't make things go away. And I always say to these women, okay, you know, this story is part of your biography. And even that you might think right now, your life makes no more sense and it's just so sad, but you know, you don't know what will come out of this story for you and what impact in a positive way, maybe later on in your life or for someone else it could have. So first of all, you have to work with the guilt. And we know, you know, the topic of guilt is a big topic. People often feel guilty. I say no people, because husbands often also, or partners, female or male, often also feel guilty. They feel like they have missed out on doing something. So you have to sort of bring a degree of calmness into the brain. And you have to have a certain technique to shift those pictures. And I'm honest, not everyone will have these techniques, but what everyone has is empathy. Empathy is the first step that you have to give a person. Telling her that it's not her fault, and telling it to her as a professional person makes a big difference. But as midwives, we have a professional level, and of course, we also often have an emotional level. Right, Kathy? That is that way. We're not just a person taking blood pressure and saying, yeah, the blood pressure is fine. I mean, I think midwives are far more than this, at least the way I was trained and I look at our profession. Then you have to figure out what happened. Okay, and sometimes people have done something wrong, or when it was a violent birth, I believe you have to go through the whole birth, and you also have to take it back to the place where it happened. But that is when we talk about violent births. When we talk about babies that have gone, then we have to find ways how, I say now again, this couple can let go of this baby. And, you know, as you know, in the hospital, it would be things like taking photos, footprints, but at the point where I see people, all of that has happened and should have happened. So having photos, even that some people culturally say, I don't want to hold this baby, I don't want to see the photo, I don't want to do all that. Nowadays, in most hospitals, at least where I have worked in all those 3 countries, we would always keep the baby in a beautiful basket, make it look very nice. And we would always really speak about the baby as a person, as it would have been a baby that was alive. And that gives great comfort. Okay, in December, I worked with a second-time mom that I know from her first baby. Same thing. She lost a baby at 36 weeks. And she comes from a Turkish background. So normally in this culture, you know, people are holding, how can I say, things in a certain way. But she said first she didn't want to hold her baby. But after a few hours, she felt like, I want to hold my baby. And she told me afterwards, holding her baby was very sad and made her cry and cry, but also gave her great comfort and also to believe that this baby had gone. Now, she went back a couple of times to the hospital to really say goodbye to her baby. And when I then started working with her, it was still the same thing, because her first question was, what have I done wrong? Maybe I've done something wrong. So the guilt question is a very important question that you should not overlook. And it will come up many, many times. Personally, in my experience working with these kind of women now for a number of years, is you have to give them something that they can do day by day, because they need some homework, because often they lose all structure. And because they have no more structure in their daily life and they feel so low, that at least you have to give them a small homework that they have to accomplish. And I will tell you what homework can be, because they often will get stuck in this merry-go-round of their thoughts of what they have done wrong. Now, personally, I'm a big fan of a method called EMDR. And I don't know if any of you knows what EMDR is. Yeah, some will know it and some won't know it. EMDR is, the nickname is called finger whacking. It's a movement of the fingers in front of your eyes. EMDR has been around for a long, long time, because EMDR was not developed for trauma in the first place. But there was a lady in America, her name was Francine Chapora, and she realized that, okay, we have all our memories placed on different parts around us, sort of on lines. So if you see yourself brushing your teeth in the morning, you see the picture somewhere else, as if you think about a memory of your favorite holiday. And it's the same. The pictures of trauma are usually big, they are very strong, and they're usually popping up in our head and we cannot control it. So EMDR is something that I got to learn about in 2015 when I had my trauma coming from Nepal. And what it does, it brings a great relief. So what it does, it shifts the picture to a different place, and that allows the person to have a feeling like as if you're stepping back a little bit out of the scene, as if you're not in the picture anymore. Now, not everyone will do EMDR, but I can tell you in my experience, it's the most wonderful, wonderful method. What it does is it gives a great relief. Typically, a person will go back into whichever part of the memory is the worst. And so to speak, it's not necessarily the moment the baby came out or this happened. It can be something quite different. Could be the moment when they felt the baby the last time. Could be like one of my clients when she was holding the baby the first time. Could be many different things. Talking about trauma is great in the beginning, but in the long run, when a person repeats her story over and over and over again, it's almost as if you anchor that story, and they will really tell you that they need to speak, but they can't find any relief in that anymore. So when you work with techniques like relaxation techniques, methods where you can help them to shift pictures in their head, or something like EMDR, you will create a space in between their thoughts, and that gives them great relief. So, sorry, I don't know if there's some questions down there, or people say, I know EMDR, I know brain spotting, I know hypnotherapy, I know NLP. A very simple technique is just for first aid that I want to share with all of you, is that you really ask a person when they talk about their story to clap on their shoulders like this, and you let them move their eyes to the right, to the left, to the right, to the left, to the right, to the left, to the right, to the left. And you can do this for a few minutes. This is a first aid method. It might come across a bit funny, but I always say to people, look, you are so sad. You can either stay sad or you just do a little bit something crazy and you do it. And if you are watching right now, I would say, think about something right now, put your hands on your shoulders, let's give it a little go, yeah? And you could think about something, please not too heavy, yeah, because we don't have so much time. And so you clap, 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 you look to the right, you look to the left, you look to the right, and keep on breathing, look to the left, look to the right, look to the left, look to the right, look to the left, look to the right, look to the right, left, okay, getting confused? Exactly. Okay, so this you could do for many minutes. Now, when you do EMDR, you usually move your fingers in front of this person's face and only their eyes follow, and it creates a certain shift, but it also helps the amygdala to release, let go, and to fire off other parts of the brain. So EMDR is one method, one out of many. And now you might say, well, Jutta, great, but I don't know EMDR. True, but first of all, as I said to you, a good talk, a hearty talk with empathy and releasing the guilt feeling is the first step that everyone can do, that all of us can do. And of course, we cannot all fix everything. So sometimes we just have to find someone to help us along with that. Now, there's other methods that you can do. Yeah, you can, for instance, ask them as a homework, think, when you are in a state of mind where you feel there is no hope, your mind constantly goes into negative feelings and thoughts. Now you are a little bit in a tunnel like that. So one thing you can always say is, okay, a person that is depressed is always going to sit like this. So always ask them to change their body posture. Secondly, ask them to get into what we call the gratefulness exercise. And people sometimes laugh and say, oh, it has been around forever. Exactly, but it has been around for a good reason. Now, all studies about happiness have shown that there is 3 things that will help people to feel better. One thing is, what are you focusing on? Are you focusing on the bad things, or can you focus also on small good things? And for me, I always tell them, create yourself a diary. Every morning, write down 3 little things that you're grateful for. Could be, okay, the sun is shining. Okay, it's raining. A little bumblebee comes flying along. A flower opens up. So you really have to start in baby steps, but you need to get the mind going into a different direction. And then usually I also say, write down 3 things in the afternoon that you think you did well. And it could be very simple, breathing techniques. Now, midwives, we all know breathing techniques. And so, I teach all those ladies very simple things. Breathing technique, inhaling to the count of 4, hold your breath for 4, exhale to 8. Yeah, for instance, that's something everyone can do. And so I share with them, you have to activate other parts of the brain. And of course, exercising. Now, I know when people are depressed, it's hard to get out. But one woman that lost a baby at 17 weeks that I saw last year, I said to her, what do you normally like? Dancing, running, jumping, climbing? Yeah, so you have to find something. And she said, normally it was dancing. So we found some really good African music. Yeah, 3 African ladies that were doing really funky dance. And I said to her, that's it, 10 minutes every day. 10 minutes. And then in the afternoon, you write down, yes, Jutta, great, I've done 10 minutes of dancing. And change is not going to come in one day, not with a story like this, but change will come. And this reassurance you have to give all the way. So now I need to have a sip of water. Cheers. I think now I've been going on for a long time. Sorry for that.
Well, I might read out some of the comments while you're just having a moment to catch your breath. And it's just great to get all these, wonderful commentary through here. So we've got somebody has said that I've had a lot of trauma in my life. Therapy has helped me the most. I did accelerated resolution therapy, so ART, with my therapist, and it has helped a lot. But I have had multiple pregnancy losses, and one of them in particular at 12 weeks still affects me greatly. I'm angry because the situation that caused it, and I still feel some guilt for allowing myself to have been in that situation. I'll read the others, and then I know that you'll want to address them. My therapist told me not to tell my almost 6-year-old that I was pregnant until I got to 12 weeks, just in case, because she had suffered too much loss already and it would have been too much for her. She has Asperger's. So I had to suffer my grief in silence so that she didn't know. It made it's so hard to process because I couldn't fully be open about it with everyone in my life. Another comment here that, yes, I advocate for others to reach out to people they know have suffered loss and not avoid them, and to acknowledge their loss and talk with them regularly. We need to be happy and comforted. And another person commented that they know that EMDR is very much sort of like ART. And as you mentioned, there's lots of different therapies, and this is, you know, just one really.
Yeah.
But yeah, so obviously, you know, it's the one with that guilt of being that somehow you were in the situation that created the loss. I know of somebody who lost their baby at 39 weeks because the something got stuck in the toaster, and they turned it off at the wall, but they didn't pull it out, and put a knife in the toaster, got electrocuted, thrown across the room, instant placental abruption, lost the baby, but almost lost themselves from the hemorrhaging. And you know, I think there must be sometimes that situation where you've got women who have lost a baby where clearly there's obviously nothing they've done that created that situation. And then you've got the situation where there could be something that they feel like they did. Maybe, you know, I don't know, maybe they overtook a little bit radically and it caused an accident and they lost their baby, or there was some kind of process in their decision making on that day that had an influence that they feel they should have done something differently. And so I guess that must add a layer of thickness to the guilt for those women, in difference to the woman who literally just did nothing, you know. So.
But let me say one thing. Even the ones that did nothing, like, okay, one of the women that lost her baby at 36 weeks, she said to me she was laying in her bed all night long thinking something is not right. She called her home birth midwife in the morning. She said, and her home birth midwife said, oh, do some breathing, this and that. But, you know, then this home birth midwife checked with her an hour later, and the woman said, I feel like something is not right. It was already too late. Should you say now to the woman, yeah, you should have gone, get up straight away, 3 o'clock in the morning? I feel like, what's the point of that? Because, you know, on the other hand, you often will say, when a woman says, I can't feel the baby move, relax, take a drink of cold water. Yeah, for me, it's like, what has happened has happened. Yeah. To point a finger and say, why did you do it? Why did you not do it? A woman rang me 6 o'clock in the morning, was one of the mornings where my phone was on. And I thought, wow. And she said to me, Jutta, I'm so worried. I feel like I can't feel my baby move. This one was another one. I said to her, straight away, get up, go to the hospital. I had such an odd feeling, but it was too late. So, you know, I feel like those women will often say, I should have gone earlier, should have. But, you know, this, what if I would have, this is gone. For me, I feel like, okay, almost, nobody is perfect, yeah?
Yeah, and it's almost like what you're saying is that it really doesn't seem to matter what the circumstance was that led to that. Or the woman, she'll find the guilt in it. almost,
Definitely.
because you're trying to understand it, you're trying to explain, to make it make sense. Um, yeah. So,
And what I've also learned is what I wanted to say, because someone in a comment said, find other people. Yes, I think for a certain amount of time, it's really great to be in a group where you are with women that have that. But in my experience, only for a certain amount of time, because you will see at a certain stage, some of the group will fall pregnant again. Some others want to fall pregnant again, but cannot. And so there's more. My topic is always when we talk about stillbirth, and that's only one type of trauma, because, there's many more, like, as I said, violent births, difficult births, this or that. I would always investigate what could I do different in the next pregnancy to avoid things like, for instance, why did I have ruptured membranes at 23 weeks or something? Not why did you have that? So what could you do to avoid it? Yeah. How can you make everything in a way optimize it? But the thing is, all those groups are great and they really fulfill a certain purpose in the beginning. But then, in my experience, the groups only can be good for a certain amount of time, because then you kind of rolling around in just that grief. And as I said, one can fall pregnant, another one doesn't. And that's usually the point where you have to get out. What I also think is, first of all, for you as the woman or the couple or the family, it's great to have, how can I say, a certain process to let go, but also to have a place for your baby. Yeah, whether it's a picture that you put somewhere or you have a little special box with a memory. I think, to have something that you can physically hold in your hand can be great. But again, you need to have a certain process to let it go. Whether it's you write a letter to your baby and say, this is what I feel like, this is what I wished for, and now I let it go, something like that. And then, okay, depending on who you are, some will definitely have to go for a therapy in the long run, because, it's such a huge topic that we only kind of touch base here in 45 minutes. But I want to say, whether it's EMDR, NLP, hypno, you have to find resources in people. And I believe every person, even when she's really down on her knees, has a little spark inside. Yeah. Every person has that. And we just have to find that spark and we have to light it up big and have to say, yeah, this is here is the you of you that is so sad. But there is another you. And that you existed before that. And that you is still there. So let me find a spark. Let me find something of you that I find is so special about you, is so wonderful. And to bring that up, because when you feel like this, you really feel like you're no good for nothing anymore. And to the woman here that said she has lost many babies and one at 12 weeks and has a child with Asperger. Now, I truly believe you are in a very special situation because of your first one already being such a special child. And, not probably being able to speak up because it could bring up so much grief and reactions. I hear you, but I think you need a place where you can let that out. And I don't know where you are. I don't know who you are. There is certainly, I believe, more to your story that we sort of can speak about in this session here. But, I'm convinced, same thing for you, that there is something in you that can come out, and then there is a way to let go of that trauma and of this grief. Now, when it comes to the people around you, I have to say, and that is clearly, sometimes people will avoid you because they don't know how to speak to you anymore when you have this trauma or this grief and lost a baby. So they do all kind of strange things. Side of they say like, oh yeah, you'll have another one and it will be fine, which is total rubbish. Or they will just not speak and they won't even ask you anymore how you are, because they feel like they can't ask you because so they often will avoid you, not call you. And if these are good friends of yours, I suggest you just or speak to them very frankly, very calmly, and you can tell them that that they might feel a bit insecure around you, but that you have a right to grieve and that you are working on this topic. At least I hope, because I can guarantee what my true opinion is. Trauma will not dissolve like snow in springtime. Trauma will stick to you like a bit of something underneath your shoe that smells all the time, where you think, what's not right? Trauma is not going to solve by itself. Yeah, time is a healer, love is a healer, positive experience in life is a healer. For sure, if you have a good birth after a bad one, that is a healer. But you have to kind of look for it and work on it to make sure that you have a space in yourself available to fill it with happiness. Now, just to say
What an
something about
interesting comment coming here,
it.
that if you make yourself guilty, you have a sense of control over the situation. It gives hope to think you could have changed the outcome and could have been able to have it not happen. Interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of could have. It's again a lot of what if. And I don't know who you are saying that. So that again is judgmental free. With all the women in the years that I've worked with trauma, whether it was rape, abuse, I've worked with women that had the most horrible stories. Yeah, your hair would stand up. So, I had women that really have experienced unspeakable things in their life and then fell pregnant, because trauma is of course more than just losing babies and things like this. And so for me, I have learned there is always this element of guilt, and I think guilt and shame is old thing. And to me, I always want to tell them, you're not guilty and there's nothing you have to be ashamed of. Of course, maybe someone feels like they could have had more control, but it's a lot of could have and didn't. For me, I look more into the future. I try to give them a way to ease the feeling, to let go of also this physical experience, to change the picture, make the picture smaller, put them a little bit in a distant way, so that if ever needed, you can pull it up, but it's not constantly in your face. And that's really what I have learned. And the guilt factor is something that I have learned needs to go away, because if you think about, you are a small kid, you broke your mother's favorite vase. I did that. I felt so guilty. Oh God, I remember that. I was very small, 4 years old. It didn't happen on purpose. I just was running around and I knew it was my mother's favorite vase. When it broke, oh, this feeling, you feel this feeling of feeling nauseous. Yeah, this feeling moving up and down your body, and you think, oh my God, mom's favorite vase, and that was just a vase. This feeling is something, if you don't work on those things, you can reproduce even 50 years later again. And you go back to that moment and suddenly, oh, this feeling comes up. So, for me, giving people the permission to let go of those feelings, for me, has a healing factor. But of course, that is my experience. And that is just really one point of view into many.
Yes, and another person commented that it's a reason why so many people will cling to the guilt in a way, and you would see this all the time, Jutta, I imagine, and working in the field that you do, where there are some women who, or not just women, but people who do seem very trapped in that story, and it's like it's so much becomes part of their identity, and it doesn't matter where they are, if they are at work, or they're in the staff room, or they're with friends, or they're meeting strangers, or they're at a barbecue, or that story will come up there. They tell the world, and it's over and over, and you do, yeah, and that they've sort of got
What that is very simple. Sometimes it's true, they identify themselves so much with that story that in a way, okay, we call it a hidden benefit. Yeah, that's actually when you feel like you get, for instance, not on purpose, but there's someone part of you that wants this attention, this kind of feeling sorry, and oh, look, the poor so and so. But I have to say, I'm honest, I think it's the smallest number of women. most women will not talk about it when it comes to certain topics. Yeah, they will be very shy about it. But there is, of course, sometimes you have that also when people have a sickness, or yeah, that you feel like they are caught in this hopelessness. You know, I remember from our last talk, I think I spoke about Martin Seligman, the psychologist that is the founder of positive psychology. And he said you have to get out of this part of being the victim. You are not the victim. And
Yes.
there is hope for everyone. And there's a circuit of hope for everyone. And that's what I love so much about Martin Seligman, yeah, who is such an amazing man who brought positive psychology into the world. And he is the one who said, you can go from pessimism to optimism. And I think he is absolutely right. You don't have to get stuck in trauma. You don't have to stay a pessimist. You don't have to get stuck in a false identity. Because I will always say to people, well, show me that Sparky, you know, show me that little fairy that lives inside you. Show me the spark. There, where is the light? Yeah, because I can see the darkness, but now I want to find the light in you. And when we find the light, we turn the volume up, and you will see how it changes your life. But you have to be brave. That's the other thing. And so for this, you want someone to encourage you to be brave and to say, yes, you jump a little bit. That's what you need. Let me tell you again the story of this lovely lady from Indonesia. Her English wasn't very good. She lost a baby in Indonesia 3 years ago at week 39, and then she came to Germany and she was pregnant again. Again, somehow through the internet, we found each other here in Berlin. And it was very funny because she joined my yoga group. And then I spoke to her once, and I said, oh, well, can I help you somehow? And then she said, yeah, I want to book a session. And then in the session, she told me that this is her baby number 2, that she had lost this baby at 39 weeks. And of course, in Indonesia, no one does anything for you. You just grieve. The husband was grieving, and the husband was already very stressed about this pregnancy. He wanted it, but was very not even talking about it. When she came for the first session, of course, she cried and cried. Yeah. I mean, for her, so many years of putting a lid on it, not talking much about it, and now being pregnant again, so full of hope and so full of fear. And so I said to her, okay, let's get working. And look, when I worked with her, she left my office. And as I said, her English is, she understands very well, but her spoken English is limited. But she's the sweetest woman you can just picture. She sent me a text message saying, Jutta, when I left your office, suddenly I felt happy for no reason. And the sky looked so blue. And so when I saw her the next time, I said to her, is the sky still looking blue? She said, so blue, so blue. And she just had a baby. Yeah. I have to
That's
say,
such a beautiful story.
yeah, for me, she was smiling. As I said, and that's for all of you. You can work even without knowing what you work on with EMDR. You can work without understanding the language. It still works for people if you kind of can explain how it works and what they have to do. It's amazing. And her story was beautiful when the sky suddenly looked so blue. And she said to me, she felt so light, so light. Yeah. And I wanted to cry because I thought, like, isn't that a wonderful feeling when someone has this relief? Yeah.
So beautiful. We could just talk for so long. We're just obviously touching just the top of the iceberg of this whole topic, and we know
Absolutely.
we are. And but gosh, you've given some really wonderful practical things there, and I think we sort of that going back to what you were saying at the beginning, that particularly as maternity health professionals,
Mm,
that to start with that, with saying, with that hearty talk, that, reassuring the woman that it's not her fault, because there'll always be that guilt there. Um, and then using something, suggesting something like EMDR, which is your eye movement desensitization, reprocessing. And I love the comment that you said, even just to change your posture, just, you know, makes that little bit of difference. And the very easy thing to do or simple was probably rather the better word than easy, but the simple thing of that gratefulness exercise of every morning, just writing down 3 things that you're grateful for, that you feel blessed for, and then in the afternoon, writing down 3 things that you did well that day. And they're such sensible, simple things that we can suggest to our clients. Wonderful hints and tips. Look, is there anything, but we do need to wind up, is there anything else you would like to add in that we haven't quite covered?
Oh God, Kathy, I
So
could
much.
add a lot now. I could say, you know, there's a point in your hand you can press. There's food you should cook. Yeah, you know, this wonderful book, Chicken Soup for the Soul. I always say, yeah, chicken soup. I'm a vegetarian. I make a vegetarian chicken soup. So, you know, I have to say, in the system that I work, it's complex. Let me wrap it up. It's mind work, it's body work, whether it's acupuncture, massage, touch, or telling them to eat well, and, you know, also making sure that, you know, it's something like a good soup. It's a little tips and tricks I give them, whether it's tapping, whether it's a acupressure point in the middle of your hand to release anxieties, whether it's breathing techniques, whether I send them to a group to exercise, whether I help them to find exercises they like. So, you know, for me, it's like, again, a little universe, a whole map where I say, yeah, when you do all those bits and pieces, it's not going to bring an instant change in one day, but day by day, step by step, you will get out and you will feel good. And when you feel good, you should enjoy it, and you should never, ever feel guilty about it. You should always think, you know, you deserve to be happy. Everyone was born to be happy. That is for sure. So, you know, we all can find back to a happy place, a happy spot in our life. This is what I would say.
Well said. Thank you so much, Jutta. You're so inspirational, and you've got such a reservoir of knowledge in there from, as you say, nearly 40 years of midwifery and being around, you know, you've probably, how many babies would you say you've caught? Probably 10,000, I would imagine.
No, I think births probably 3,000, but, you know, when I look at the amount of people that I see day by day,
Yes.
and, you know, the amount of people I teach my classes, childbirth, hypno, yoga, also many different things. I mean, I have to say, I think it's 10,000s, yeah,
Yes.
because
The
I'm the
people that you've
person that,
impacted.
yeah, people
Yeah.
squeeze in because they say, oh, this is going on. I say, okay, okay, the calendar's full, but come in or have a Zoom call or come for a little treatment. Yeah, because I combine many things. And, you know, so all of that together makes the happy chicken soup to get out of trauma and to, you know, be, again, a person that has the feeling she has a right to live and can do things, because, as I said, that truly is my belief. That is what everyone deserves. Yeah.
We're completely on that same page. We're not here to suffer. We're here to find our happiness.
Yeah.
And look, thank you so much, Jutta, and thank you everybody who was joining us live here today. It's always wonderful to have your you know, feedback through the sessions, and we know, of course, there's going to be lots of others who will be watching this later down the track. So we just here at IMCO, we just wish everybody a wonderful rest of their day, rest of their week, and
Yes.
and thank you for your time, Jutta, and everybody for touching base today. So go on and have a wonderful rest of your day and rest of your week, everybody. Thank you so much.
And we say
Bye.
hearts. Thank you, everyone. Bye.